Peace, good evening, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us for the 2023 Virtual Speaker Series. This is our last event in the series, and we're very grateful to have Chairwoman Nijmeh, who is the chairwoman of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. And so I'll give a brief introduction in a moment, but just wanted to, again, welcome you all. And again, thank you for those that are here present, as well as those who are watching at some later point. My name is Rashid Shabazz, and I'm the Vice President of the Alameda Museum. And I'm also the chair of the Exhibitions and Events Committee. And this is our second year doing virtual events. And we wanted to provide a space and opportunity for different storytellers, historians, herstories, and culture keepers to be able to tell stories, histories that may not be in our museum, but also just beyond the walls of the museum. And so we're very grateful for you all being here and being present with us today. We're very grateful for the opportunity to engage with the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and for this conversation about preservation, recognition, and sovereignty. And Charlene is the chairwoman of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, and she is from the Marine Sanchez lineage that descends from the first peoples of the San Francisco Bay Area. And so while, it might sound like I might say, oh, I'm grateful we can host. I'm grateful to be hosted and to be here as a visitor on this land. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome the chairwoman. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashid. Horshay tuhi kanakraka Charlene Nijmeh, Wetresh Muwekma Ohlone, San Francisco Bay Area tak. I greet you in our native Chochenyo language. That means good day. My name is Charlene Nijmeh, and I am the chairwoman for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area. I am the granddaughter of Dolores Marin Sanchez, who was born on the Sonol Rancheria in 1911, and great-granddaughter to Ramona Marin, who was born on the Aliseo Rancheria near Pleasanton in 1893. My native lineages were baptized at Mission San Jose going back to the year 1814, when my great-great-grandmother, Efrina Quinatoli, was missionized into Mission San Jose from her village on the north side of the Carquinez Strait. Her husband, Liberato Copopsi, from the Saclan and Jalquin tribes, were baptized at Mission Dolores in 1801. My ancestors has stewarded these lands of the San Francisco Bay Area for over 10,000 years. And I am here today as a survivor only because of their determination, their strength and resilience, and their sacrifice of our leaders who protected us from the colonization and genocide that we suffered at the hands of the Spanish and the Americans. I want to share our history, but first I wanted to talk briefly about, just because Thanksgiving is coming up, the Unthanksgiving Day, also known as National Day of Mourning. Unthanksgiving Day is a way for us Indigenous people to reclaim our story. We refuse to accept the false narratives that were spread by the colonizers who stole and settled our lands long time ago. And so we tell our own story to our children. We reflect on the past treatment of our ancestors, and we remind ourselves and the next generation that our communities are stronger together. Our families have survived. We have survived together, and we pass on our traditions, our ceremonies, and our language so they may never die. Most non-natives don't know or understand the pain and the trauma that our ancestors suffered, and the generational trauma that's still with us today that we still all suffer from. So we use this day to tell our stories, not only to our children, but also to our friends and our allies and advocates, so they can understand why celebrating genocide at Thanksgiving makes us feel unseen. This is not to say we should not celebrate this day with family and friends. We should most definitely spend this time together and enjoy our community and family bonds. but the meaning of the day should be more reflective of our true understanding of history and our compassion towards all historically oppressed peoples. Now I want to give a history of the tribe for those of you who haven't heard. The Muwekma Ohlone tribe today is comprised of all the known surviving American Indian lineages aboriginal to the San Francisco Bay Area region, who trace their ethno-historic origins from the indigenous tribes who continuously occupied these lands for over 10,000 years. Upon arrival of the Spanish in the late 1700s, all Muwekma Ohlone members were involuntarily confined at the 3 Bay Area missions, and that was Mission Dolores, Mission Santa Clara, and Mission San Jose. After the secularization of the missions in 1834, most of the Mission San Jose Indians who were rounded up from outside the Ohlone-speaking territories left the area, returning to their non-Ohlone villages. But those who remained in the former Ohlone-speaking territory coalesced, came together as a distinct community living on 2 Indian rancherias in Pleasanton and Niles, where we were able to revive indigenous cultural practices such as the sweat lodge and ceremonial dances. And they were comprised of those who came from the Ohlone-speaking villages. These 2 rancherias were very close to each other, and they formed a single distinct community that was well known locally. In 1906, our tribe was identified and included in a census ordered by Congress of landless California tribes and bands, being identified on the 1906 census and thereafter being named in 1914, 1923, and again in 1927 on the list of tribes to receive land by Congress, effectively gave the Muwekma people acknowledgement, also known as recognition as an American Indian tribe. And just to be clear, Muwekma's existence and identity do not depend on federal recognition or acknowledgement. The community, meaning the people, we make up the tribe, and we are a tribal community long before the federal government recognized us. Federal recognition does not create tribes. It just recognizes social political communities that predate the United States. And it creates a trust relationship between the tribe and the federal government, which entitles tribes and our members to certain federal benefits and triggers the operation of a whole body of U.S. law involving respect for tribal sovereignty, including the protection and repatriation of our ancestral remains. Tribal nations have ceded millions of acres of land that make up what the United States is today, and in return receive the guarantee of ongoing self-determination on our lands. This right of sovereignty and self-determination was promised in perpetuity to tribal nations, and that government-to-government relationship can only be terminated by Congress. And we were known locally by many names. We were known as Mission San Jose Indians, Pleasanton Indians, Ohlone Indians, and in 1914, the Indian Agency, without informing the tribe or anyone else, labeled us the Verona Band after a railroad station built for Senator George Hearst and his wife, Phoebe Hearst. And even though Verona Band was listed in 1914 and 1923, and again in 27 on this list of tribes to receive land, an Indian agent, without the benefit of a site visit or need assessment, reported the tribe was not in need of land and removed Verona Band from the list of tribes to receive land. So these 2 departmental actions or administrative errors of mislabeling the tribe as Verona and refusing to buy us a land base that was mandated by Congress was the beginning of our political erasure and our disenfranchisement. Then in 1925, Alfred Kroeber, who headed the anthropology department at UC Berkeley, contributed to that political erasure when he declared the Ohlone Costanoan people were extinct for all practical purposes in his monumental handbook for the Indians of California. Kroeber, who personally interviewed the elders of the Muwekma Ohlone community from 1904 to 1914, was familiar with our landless tribal community. He would later reverse his position in 1955 when he published an article, Continuity of Indian Population in California from 1770 to 1884 to 1955. But sadly, the damage was caused by Kroeber, and that couldn't easily be reversed. And although the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA, has admitted that the Muwekma Ohlone was acknowledged as a federally recognized tribe in 1927, and that our status was never terminated by Congress, they still neglected to place our tribe on the first official 1978 list of federally recognized tribe, another crucial departmental error. When our tribe sought to clarify our status in the early 80s, the BIA claimed we were no longer considered a tribe, and that for some reason, and for reasons they themselves didn't understand, our tribe had withered away. Even when we presented clear evidence of our existence from the late 1700s to present day, the BIA rejected our evidence and made a final determination that we no longer existed as a tribe. That was the culmination of our political erasure. But of course, we had not withered away. Their conclusions that we ceased to exist as a tribal community is not supported by the facts or the evidence. And the evidence continues to mount in our favor. Recently, Stanford and Illinois researchers just released a 7-year genomic study that connected our present-day Muwekma Ohlone members to ancestors at a 2,500-year-old village site here in the San Francisco Bay Area. This adds to the growing body of evidence that proves we are the people of the San Francisco Bay Area, and we have been here for thousands of years, and we are still here today together. And just last year, a U.S. federal district court judge ruled that the Muwekma Ohlone tribe still retains its sovereign immunity, despite not being on the BIA's list of federally recognized tribes. After 43 years of struggling to clarify our status, I now realize evidence and facts don't matter to those in power. I once believed the department's indifference and neglect was to blame, but now I see the purposeful actions that led to our erasure. They purposefully misnamed us, removed us from the list to receive land, left us off the 1978 list of recognized tribes, and then completely ignored our evidence in their evaluation of our petition for federal acknowledgement. The reason is as plainly simple as it is plainly wrong. San Francisco Bay Area real estate is too expensive to belong to the indigenous population. They needed to mine gold, develop cities, and build Silicon Valley. The tech companies built enormous wealth on stolen Muwekma Ohlone lands without having to worry about the displacement of the first inhabitants. Is it coincidental that today there are no federally recognized tribes in the entirety of the San Francisco Bay Area? After decades of unsuccessful attempts to exterminate us, they tried to assimilate us. And when that didn't work, they finally realized that termination and political erasure would ensure a tribe-free zone in the San Francisco Bay Area. They didn't, and they still don't want any tribal government standing in the way of their unchecked developments and their desecration of our sacred sites and ancestral remains. But I believe in today's era of social and racial justice, it's time for the Muwekma Ohlone tribe to finally gain recognition. Our ancestors have been here for 10,000 years, and today the Muwekma people still reside in their homeland. We have a thriving tribal community that is revitalizing our dances, our language, and our cultural traditions. Our tribal government continues to work and partner with the cities, universities, agencies, environmental groups in our Aboriginal territory. Now I want to go into my own personal journey to becoming the chairwoman of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. First, I have to say that my ancestors and their sacrifices inspired me, and they continue to give me the strength I need today to take on the difficult leadership role I find myself in. To be fair, I knew how difficult being a leader of a sovereign tribal nation would be, since I witnessed the struggles of the previous chairwoman, who happened to be my mother. I saw the toll it took on her, having this huge responsibility to fight the federal government for the survival of our people and our inherent right to exist as a distinct people. She didn't hesitate when she was chosen by the people to serve. So how could I hesitate? When you are called upon, it's your duty to serve. When I was a young woman, I witnessed my mother hitting an archaeologist with a shovel because he was trying to remove my mother and my grandmother and other relatives from a burial site of our ancestors. That archaeologist told my mother and my grandmother that these weren't their ancestors and that the Ohlone people were extinct. So he tried to physically remove my grandmother. And the act of defending my grandmother and her ancestors buried beneath, my mother swung that shovel and hit the archaeologist. But because of this act of political resistance, she went to jail. She lost her home and she went bankrupt. But that didn't stop her from her duty to protect our ancestors and serve our community. Although my mother tried to protect her people that day, she always regretted her actions. She would tell me it's not who we are. We can't let them make us so angry that we resort to violence. She sat me down when I was a very young girl and she said, Charlene, this struggle started way before me and it won't end with me. She told me you must be ready to fight for your people, but please don't make the same mistake that I made. Raise your voice and make them hear you, but don't ever lose control and raise the shovel. That was one of the reasons that has guided my leadership of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. The lessons of self-sacrifice and service that I've learned from my mother and my grandmother are lessons that I live by today. My mother, my ancestors, and our current tribal council, who sacrificed so much without asking what they can get out of it, all taught me the connection between serving and leading. You can't lead if you're not willing to serve. I think that's what's wrong with our politics today. We have so many career politicians who stay in power for 30, 40 years and act as if people are there to serve them and not the other way around. Our politicians are called leaders, but I am not totally convinced of that. Too many of our elected officials demand respect, but they don't give respect. They demand campaign contributions to give you an audience. If you want their help to pass legislation, they try to negotiate something for that support. Believe me when I say that whenever legislation is passed, our politicians want something out of it. This is not what I was taught about leadership. They are supposed to work for us and serve our needs, and not the other way around. They are supposed to sacrifice for their communities. Today, we must hold our leaders accountable for their actions and their inactions alike. It's not enough to do no harm. We must all stand up and stop the harm from being done. I try to live up to the standards of the leadership that the people who came before me taught me. True leadership is about bringing us together, not working to divide us. True leadership is listening to all of those you represent and finding solutions that make all our lives better, not just some of us. I don't pretend this is an easy task, but it has to start with the truth. Honest conversations, truthful language, and respect for each other. After what I have witnessed in the past 5 years, I don't believe the Muwekma Ohlone tribe will ever be able to overcome the special interest corruption that controls our politicians. Therefore, I have made 2 important decisions this year. One is the Trail of Truth. This is a journey across the continent on horseback from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., to demand President Biden live up to the promises made to my people and restore the federal recognition status of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe. It will be the culmination of a 43-year struggle with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which will be detailed along the journey. I will be leading a caravan of 50 horses, dozens of cars and buses, visiting Indian reservations along the way to garner support from Indigenous and other communities while discussing the politics of erasure and the many challenges that still haunts American Indian tribes in this country. I will talk with tribal leaders, youth, and elders to hear their own stories of conquest, domination, subjugation, as they too struggle for political liberation in North America. We will spawn a new American Indian movement for the forgotten tribes who were left behind. We will have conversations about genocide, colonization, governance, culture, freedom, and justice, as well as the corruption of America's political systems by moneyed interests, including our own tribal special interests that continues to oppress the most forgotten and marginalized tribal and other communities of color. This will be an honest conversation, a trail of truth with the public about how the American political process has failed all but those who can afford it. A corrupted process that has held my people hostage for the last 43 years. We will have discussions with experts from Stanford, UC Berkeley, Santa Clara University, San Jose State University, Cal State East Bay, and other Bay Area national experts who will illustrate the science, research, and facts that supports my tribe's position, which conflicts directly with the narrative of powerful institutions, developers, and gambling interests in the San Francisco Bay Area, who have paid handsomely to politically erase our tribe, despite the irrefutable volume of evidence that we have. As we journey across the country, I will speak on local radio shows and do interviews with local and national media organizations to highlight the struggles of my people and other communities who face similar disenfranchisement by our dysfunctional system that no longer represents the people, the truth, nor the justice. We will arrive in DC and camp out in our traditional tule huts along with supporters and wait until President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Interior Secretary Deb Haaland comes out and hears our voices. My second decision is to take on the powerful interests at the heart of their power. I have announced that I am running for Congress in District 18 against Zoe Lofgren in 2024, who's backed by the Democratic Party machine and the special interest corporate money that keeps her in Congress, who has kept her in Congress for the last 30 years. The Democratic Party doesn't want me to run against her. They tell me I should wait until she retires. I told them that I don't have time to wait and that my people in this district don't have time to wait for her to decide to retire. So it's time to make room for, I believe, it's time to make room for a new generation of leaders who are not beholden to trillion-dollar corporations and special interest money. Thank you. I want to thank you all for having me and listening to my tribe's history and our struggles and the next step forwards. Now I'd like to open it up for question and answers. Thank you, Rashid.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Valerie.
for just the reminders around this week. And for some people, it's understood as a holiday around thanks, but it's a day of mourning. And there's a narrative that's not accurate, and also sharing their history and also just some of the upcoming work from the Trail of Truth and the political challenge you're preparing to do. So again, thank you so much. I have a few questions, and then we want to encourage folks. You can either add, for those who are here live, you can add questions into the chat as well as comments, and you can also use the hand raise function in order to ask questions. So first, with the program title, Preservation, Recognition, and Sovereignty, was really interested in what you shared around this journey for federal recognition, and it being both an error but a very intentional. Um, and so I was curious, how do you balance both seeking recognition but also not needing recognition?
Can you repeat that again, Rashid? I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem. And I'll add a word into it to just clarify what I mean. So, how do you balance seeking this political recognition while also not needing recognition as people who preceded, colonies, empires, nation states?
Right. So, of course, we are a sovereign tribe. We are a government. But unfortunately, because of this policy, this federal recognition, all we're asking for is the government to acknowledge our existence. So when that happens, we know we exist. We know we're a tribal community, and we've been taught this throughout our time, throughout our histories. But recognition means that we will be able to repatriate our ancestors. That's the biggest thing that we face as a tribe. Our tribe has always been involved with protecting our sacred sites and our ancestors when they were uncovered, like my own personal story of the 80s when my mother hit the archaeologist. When he hit us, when she hit him, he was saying that the Ohlone people are extinct, that we don't exist and you're not recognized. That was the pivoting point for my people to say, no, we are a tribal nation and the Ohlone people are still here. But they have this, they have this list they created, right? And these policies that make it difficult for us to continue to do what's important for us. And also having land is important to live on. One of my goals, long-term vision, is being able to acquire land to create a native village for my people to live on. The government was supposed to buy us land, and they never did. So right now, my people are at the brink of being gentrified. The young people are being gentrified out of this area as we speak because of the cost of living. So my vision is to create that native village. And this will happen whether we have federal recognition or not. We will acquire land either through our preservation foundation, through fundraising with different organizations to help us acquire the land and build this village. But I'm working very hard to make sure that we are not pushed out of our 10,000-year-old homeland. So, I want to circle back about the ancestors. This federal policy, this federal government, they created policies, I think, to kind of put barriers up, for us. And one of these barriers that our tribe faces, because we don't have federal recognition, is to be able to repatriate our ancestors. So our tribe actually did repatriate before the NAGPRA became law in 1994. So in 1989, Stanford actually repatriated to our tribe 1,200 plus ancestors, and we reburied them right after they were returned. But because of this policy now, you have to be federally recognized. You have to be on that list to repatriate. And UC Berkeley has thousands of our ancestors sitting in their basement, and they cannot return them back to us because we're not federally recognized. So any federally recognized tribe around us can swoop up swoop in and take our ancestors if they choose to do so. You know, it's become political, honestly. This is what's happened.
Wow. Thank you. Just a follow-up question. You mentioned the advocacy work, the organizing that you're doing as chairwoman, and the lineage, the legacy you come from. But I imagine many of us don't really know, what does that mean to be a tribe chairperson? So, yeah, what does a tribal chairwoman or chairperson do?
Well, I work on many projects, like, you know, trying to work on acquiring land. We started our preservation foundation just last year. We received our 501c3. And we're trying to model off of our neighboring tribe, Amamutsun. You know, they're doing wonderful work on the land. And I believe they just acquired land themselves along the coast. So this is something that we want to emulate, and this is something I'm working on. And the other thing is, you know, it's keeping our people together. You know, it's not an easy job being chair, because you're responsible for those people you represent. You represent their interests. And what their interest is right now is being able to stay on their homeland, being able to repatriate their ancestors. You know, the young people are looking to, you know, in 2002, a few council women on our council revitalized our language. The youth a couple years ago took the initiative to bring back our dances. So with the help and support from our Miwok relatives to the east of us, they've supported our youth. So everything that our people want to see happen, it's my job and duty to make that come to fruition for them. You know, creating those partnerships and relationships to make what they want to see happen in their community happen.
Thank you. So we have a few questions. I saw one hand that went back down, but also a question in the chat that I'll come to in a moment. I wanted to make sure I ask this question. One of the things the Alameda Museum is interested in doing is improving the exhibitions, correcting information, and really telling a better story of folks who lived here or who live here. I say lived partially because I know many folks were forced out of Alameda as well. So that's more recently. Like, I'm not talking about 100 years ago or beyond. But I'm curious if there's a process that you have in collaborating with institutions like museums.
Yes, so we have a long standing relationships, and usually, I mean, this started with the previous chair, my mother, Rosemary Canberra. You know, she's always been engaged, sharing our history and our stories with the public, anybody who would be willing to listen. And we've been able to create these relationships. Like, for example, San Jose State, we've had a long relationship, 40-year relationship there. And she's always been engaged with these institutions. But it hasn't been easy, Rashid, because of racism, right, and prejudice, I believe. My mom has always knocked on the doors, the council members with her in support to share our story, have exhibits, but we haven't been well received at all. Up until recently, I have to say, things are changing. I think because of this movement of being able to speak the truth, right? And hear the truth and hear the stories and bring communities like ours to the table, because you want to hear them, you want to listen, and you want to learn. That's what I see that's happening now, because as a young child, I didn't see that happening. I saw the struggle with the agencies, museums too, and I have to say, some academic institutions like UC Berkeley, they were not receptive to partnering up with the tribe. When my mother was working on the repatriation effort with Stanford, at the same time, she was trying to get Berkeley to do the same thing with those thousands of ancestors that were there, and they shut the door on the tribe. They used what Kroeber used. You're not a recognized tribe. You're extinct. and they shut the door. This is the kind of language this political erasure is what we faced up until recently. I think things are changing, but we are always happy to build those relationships with these museums who welcome us to the table. And we actually just, for the last 5 years, we've created exhibits at Los Altos Museum. New Moon Museum just created a beautiful traveling museum for us. So now this traveling museum is going to be at Santa Clara University real soon. So we encourage this kind of partnership,
Absolutely. And just one thought, and I'll probably do a disclaimer, just speaking of myself now on behalf of the Alameda Museum, thinking about this political erasure and experience with this archaeologist and the shovel, like that language, while you're worried about your ancestors, I think is also a form of violence, if not more violent than whatever may have been done with a shovel. I wasn't there, I don't know about what happened, but just want to bring it to the level of just acknowledging this sort of structural violence of not only erasing people, but in not allowing people to practice their care for their ancestors. That's painful. We had a couple questions. I want to first go. I saw a hand up from Owen. You're welcome to. You can unmute and ask your question if you'd like. All right, and so there you go.
Oh, hello. I raised my hand earlier. By the way, Charlene, I was at the political rally Saturday, so thank you for speaking. Yeah, I had just gotten back from Spokane because I'm a Gonzaga University student, and it's I was very tired. But anyway, so I'm looking into the Muwekma Ohlone as a part of a school research project. I chose the Ohlone as a whole because I didn't realize there were many tribes within it. And anyway, I just wanted to know, so I understand that the loss of federal recognition means you do not have access to ancestral remains. What other issues does that entail?
Sure. Well, I want to correct you because the tribe never lost its recognition. Only Congress can terminate a tribe status. And the BIA admitted in court that Muwekma Ohlone never lost its status. Only Congress can terminate a tribe status. And that's why they turned around and said that our tribe withered away. But honestly, what the BIA did is administratively terminated us. And that's not legal to do. So they had to mess with the language. So the language they use is that our community disbanded, ceased to exist as a social political community, which is not the case at all. We have been together, our families have been together, fighting for the main issue we fought for was the desecration of our ancestors. It started in the 60s with my grandmother and her relatives. She had two aunts alive at the time, and they were our leaders. And so the families came together with the help and support from the San Francisco Historical Society in the 60s to stop Caltrans from putting a road through the Ohlone Cemetery, where my great-great-grandmother, all my relatives are buried there. So they were successful in making that happen. They came together again in the late 70s, early 80s with the old Holiday Inn site where my mother hit the archaeologist with the shovel to protect the ancestors. So they, always came together on our issues about our ancestors. But what happens with federal recognition, not just being able to repatriate our ancestors, being able to be a part of those programs that federally recognized tribes are afforded. Like, for example, when the pandemic happened, they had the CARES Act. We didn't have access to those millions of dollars that were allocated to the federally recognized tribe. Our tribe had to fundraise, do a GoFundMe to be able to help support our members who lost their jobs or needed help with rent, medications for our elders. We just don't have access to the housing programs, the job training programs, repatriation, and education. Education is an important one. Most recently, the UC Berkeley system in California, I think it was about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, they just passed a policy granting free tuition to all the recognized tribes in California. So our tribe, our members, our young people are not afforded that program. I mean, just to even lift ourselves up from the trauma we still face, this generational trauma is real for us. We still have uneducated members because they can't afford to go to school, or, just a lot of things. And this is what federal recognition would help with. Even to nation build. Here's the thing with our Congress representatives that I faced. And this is what really pushed me to run for Congress. The bottom line had to do with being underrepresented, my community being underrepresented by Zoe Lofgren, by Anna Issue, Ro Khanna, Eric Swalwell. They told me they know who Muwekma is. We have been a part of their political career since they started. What they said to me is, we will get legislation started, but what we don't want you to do is nation build. We want to take a piece of your right away. And what they said is, we don't want a casino in the Bay Area. And I said to them, I said, because you're talking about two different things here. That a casino is economic development. I'm talking about sovereignty. I'm asking you to restore our sovereignty because the government made a mistake. It's been done before, and you can do it again. The BIA keeps telling me to come to Congress so Congress can fix this mistake. They don't want to fix their mistake. But now you're asking my people to give up something, to give up a right that was given to California Indians by the voters. I said, I'm sorry, but this has nothing to do what kind of economic development our people choose to do in the future. This has to do about sovereignty, whether we're a tribe or not. That's what this is about. And you're asking also for us to be second-class citizens in Indian country, when no tribe in California who are recognized today has been less of. You're asking us to be less. And I'm sorry, my people refuse to be less. So that was really the pushing point, because in this visit with Congress, I had community members, I had church leaders, I had student activists going with me to visit our representatives. And these people expressing to our representatives that they cared and they want to see Muwekma recognized. And this is what our politicians said. And it comes down to special interests. It comes down to our other recognized tribes and gaming clubs in our Aboriginal territory saying, we don't want this to happen. So they're being bought off is what it comes down to. They're not doing the right thing when it comes to correcting an injustice that happened here. So that I said, I'm sorry, but I need to run for office to break the shackles that is on my people and break the shackles of the marginalized people in the Bay Area, because them not listening to the community members they represent, they weren't listening to their voices either. It didn't matter. I mean, that really was eye-opening for me, that this is wrong. They're here to represent our voices. not special interests. I hope I answered you, Owen, and thank you for coming to my announcement rally. I appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you. That definitely answered my question. I've done some research into it, and I didn't know about the UC Berkeley free tuition offer. That's thank you so much for the information.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of information, so it's a lot going on. I do see a message, a text message.
Yeah, there's a few more questions.
I think Valerie was asking where and who are the closest recognized tribes to the Bay Area. The closest one to us is Grayton Rancheria, Rohnert Park, and they're really spread out. And that's why I say this, having if you look at the whole Bay Area, like from San Francisco all the way down to Monterey Bay, there's a big black hole here. Why aren't there any recognized tribes in the Bay Area? They're all 2.5, 3 hours away. Like Grayton Rancheria is one of them. We have several of them to the east, right? The East Sierra Nevada area by Sacramento and in that direction. And then we have south to us is the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians. They are the next closest to us that has gaming facilities. These are all the tribes that do gaming around us. And then we have Central Valley. And I do have to say, Valerie, that all these tribes oppose Muwekma's federal recognition. This actually came out. I became aware of it when our local representatives, like our state assembly member and our state senators, they all jumped on board to get a resolution introduced at the state level. And it was Senator Dave Cortese and Bob Wieckowski. They were co-authoring this resolution and it wasn't giving our tribe recognition. It was just a letter acknowledging our existence and saying they support our efforts in federal recognition and calling on, right, the Biden and Kamala Harris and Deb Haaland to do the right thing. But once they introduced that resolution last year, all the tribes opposed it. And they didn't come out, the tribes in our area did not come out publicly, but they called our senator to stop it. And our senator's office did share that. He was kind of taken back that he was getting a lot of pressure not to do this. And he asked me, what would you like to do? I said, I'm going to go back to the council and find out how we move forward. And my council said, let's take this we need to take this to a vote. And that's what we did. We kept moving forward. But the tribes down south, all the tribes down south with gaming facilities, wrote a letter opposing our recognition. And what they said is, we've already been through the process and we were denied. And actually the other thing they said was, it's not the state's business to be involved in federal recognition issues. But anyway, what happened there is the resolution went to the Government Organization Committee, and the chairman, William Dodd, killed it in the committee. He would not vote on it. At first, he didn't want to hear it, but Senator Dave Cortese got him to at least hear testimony. And we had the room filled with supporters in support of our resolution. But ultimately, he didn't vote on it, so it just died there.
Wow. I wanted to use that as maybe a transition to another question that was asked about the relationships with other Ohlone who may not be identify themselves as Muwekma. So what are some of the, maybe if you can explain a little bit like what Ohlone is, or who Ohlone are rather,
Sure.
and then the relationships.
Well, when I first came on as the chair, I wanted to find out, with all the 40 years of research that's been done on our tribe in the Bay Area and the Bay Area, all the research, I needed to find out what happened. And in that research that was put together in this beautiful story, this report by a renowned anthropologist from the East Coast, she actually worked for the BIA. What she said is that our tribe, Muwekma Ohlone, really is the only tribe that can call themselves Ohlone because we stayed on Ohlone territory. It's a language. And the other tribes, like our neighboring tribe, Amamutsun, they also call themselves Ohlone, and Ohlone, Costano, and Esla Nation. Louise, the chairman for that tribe, she says, we're not Ohlone. That was an anthropologist that called us that name. Like I said, they called us many names, these non-Indigenous people. So the only tribe who can say they're Ohlone is Muwekma. Our neighboring tribe is Mutsun, and then Eslan. But if you're talking about the other Ohlone organizations or groups or individuals out there, like, for example, Karina Gould, Sagorate, she is a relative of ours. She's a direct relative. Her great-grandmother and my great-grandmother are sisters. Her families are enrolled in Muwekma. She just chooses not to be enrolled in Muwekma. And we've never, the previous chair, my mother, when she contacted our tribe, I believe it was like in 2000, this is a story that was told to me, because I always ask, why isn't these other individuals, there's a few of them, don't want to be a part of our community. And she just says, it's just, we can't force them to be a part of the nation if they don't want to. If they don't want to be citizens, I can only share the information if they ask. I can share their genealogy. I can share their history. And it's up to them what they want to do with that. And my mother encouraged, like Karina Gould, and she's actually the only one, and Andy Galvan, his family's the only one too that is not enrolled in the tribe. His aunts and uncles and cousins are all enrolled in the tribe, but those two really are our direct family, and they just choose not to be enrolled in the tribe. They have ancestry, but they're not tribal nations. They're not tribal nations. The only tribal nation in the Bay Area is Muwekma Ohlone, and we represent 614 tribal members.
Thank you for that explanation. There's also a question which asks, this is from the Hayden family, about the returned land. It was a little earlier up. And so, last year, I think it was last December, the city of Oakland entered a partnership with the Land Trust to return land. And so I'm gonna just make it a little broader, just if you want to speak about like different land back efforts and maybe that one in particular.
Sure. Actually, Mayor Libby Schaaf did reach out to me about that. And and she encouraged me to do the same, right? She says, I encourage Muwekma to reach out to the city. This was a time when she was kind of, I don't know the term, retiring out of her position.
Yeah, not quite like a lame duck, but
yeah,
transitioning.
So transitioning out. And so she says, I encourage you, Charlene, to do the same. But I said, this is a first good step for the city to do this kind of work. But you do have to realize who you're giving, who you're working, who you're returning land to, or easement, whatever you're doing there. You should understand what that is. It's an organization. It's not the tribal nation. And if you're okay with that, I don't dispute that at all. But, and that's something the city wants to do. But I did tell the mayor that, this is a first good step that the city's taking. And, we appreciate that. And definitely we will circle back when the time is right for us. to also get land easements or acquire land. That's what the effort for our Preservation Foundation last year, when we got that established, is to one day acquire land, but we need to be ready for that too.
Understood. I have 2 follow-up questions, but I just want to remind folks, if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. There was also a lot of affirmations that were going on in the chat too, and so y'all are encouraged to continue to do that. And just to, again, share some of those. You had folks saying, "Thank you for not giving in to despair about past wrongs and continuing to fight for justice and positive change," as well as thanking you for your work and your courage. We had a college student share their work earlier doing research, and I'm just curious about if any educational partnerships, and so if there's been any work to inform curriculum in some of the schools here in the Bay Area.
Yes, actually, we created a beautiful program and a walking tour with Santa Clara University. And if you're interested in, knowing more about that, I can copy you, send you information. So Santa Clara University created an Ohlone working group, which I was a part of, and my relative Andy Galvan was also a part of. And so it's sharing the history on campus, and it's a virtual tour. So they have these displays up where they can, use their phones to kind of highlight certain places on campus, and it brings up, our prehistory, mission history, mission period, and then who we are today and where we're at and our struggles. It's such a beautiful walking tour that was built with a lot of education in there too. So I can connect, if you're interested in something like that, I can connect you with the people who put that together. Because I know there's a few universities that want to copy that, that same model.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something folks in the museum have been interested in. And then just related to, or not, maybe not even related, but I'll just ask this question. A few years ago, the city of Alameda renamed Andrew Jackson Park to Chochenyo Park. And so I was curious of your thoughts about those kind of efforts around renaming.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
I'll ask it without the disclaimer around.
yeah, no, it's so important to start renaming in our language. Chochenyo is the name of our language, but it's so important because when the settlers came, that's the first thing they did. They took our names off. They stripped us of our language, our identity, our culture. So we always encourage that. So our tribe, that's one thing we do work on at sites, where our ancestors are uncovered. We have complete ownership of our own history. We create an ethno-historic report that has our history in it, along with the data of the ancestors that were uncovered. But also we rename that site in our Aboriginal language, and we rename trails, we rename parks. Right now, we're working on renaming Jasper Ridge Park at Stanford in our language. So it's so important for us to bring back, our history and our culture and our language back out into the community, because it shows that we're still here, we still exist, we're still alive and thriving members of the community. And it's a reminder, right, to the public. So the park, Chochenyo Park, I think it's, it's okay, it's good. It's good. Chochenyo is our language, so it could have been, named something else in Chochenyo, but that's a start. And yeah. I also want to say, in regards to the city of Alameda, when I was working on SGR 13, I was reaching out to the East Bay in support of our effort for federal recognition. And I didn't get a very good reception at all. I didn't get any of the cities supporting a resolution to send to the state or send to the federal government in support of our recognition. So that was, here's another politics of erasure is what I would call this, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. And also maybe an opportunity for those who are involved in organizing to be involved in that effort locally. We had a question. I saw the hand raised. So if you'd like to, you're welcome to unmute. But I do see the hand or the question in the chat. Oh, you're already unmuted. Go for it.
Yeah. Hello, Chairwoman Nijmeh. So I don't know if anybody asked this question yet, and I'm sorry if this is a double, but I was just wondering what your thoughts are and what your feelings are about making more monuments around Alameda. Like, we have at least 4 different shell mounds that were here, that are still here under the ground. And the opportunity perhaps to like make a district around here. We've got a lot of new things that are coming. There's a whole entire park over on the base called Pave Park, and it's this wonderful opportunity to remove, all of this basically like pollution in the form of concrete, and everything that was on the base, and all of that pollution and everything that's there. And I think it would be really great if we were able to do more to recognize Ohlone people and give you more space and give you more recognition. And I'm putting that out there. I guess it's not really a question, but there it is.
Thank you, Gabriel. And I do want to acknowledge the city of San Jose, their art department. They just put up a mural, I think 18 months ago, of the tribe. It's showing, it's a depiction of the message of this mural is the past, present, and future. And it has our elders above and our children below because they're our future. And then they have a big mural, actually me in the middle as the leadership today, the present leadership with the hummingbirds. It's a beautiful mural that they put up, and it's an acknowledgement of our tribe that we're still here. And that's what we have. The message there is Maki Muwekma Ohlone is we are still here. So that's along the Guadalupe River. So we support artists around the Bay Area who wants to acknowledge that we're still here. We support that. So I think having this type of artwork around Alameda area would be beautiful to have something like that. And our tribe actually does. I'm trying to figure out where to put him. My mother, in the late 80s, there was an artist from Canada. He's from one of the tribes in Canada. And he had a vision, and he created this, he's called Eagle Man Rising. And he's this sculpture of an eagle man on the ground coming up, kind of pulling himself up from these granite slabs. It's like 5 slabs of granite representing 500 years of oppression. And there's chains around him. So, I mean, he represents really the gentrification and the marginalized and oppressed around the world. And so this would be like another piece, that we can place him somewhere. I was trying to work on city of San Jose placing him because we just removed the Fallon statue in June. So that's a possibility there. But if Alameda, county or city would like to have him placed, because his message is powerful.
Wow, that sounds very powerful.
Yeah, he represents everybody. But I like your idea, Gabriel.
Awesome. I do too. So I really just want to thank you for taking the time out to share your history, your own story, and the trail of truth that you're blazing. And wanted to just end out with a couple of slides, but also give you the opportunity to share anything else if you wanted to share the final word in a moment. First, I just wanted to share with folks, again, this has been a focus on preservation, recognition, and sovereignty of the Muwekma Ohlone. We've been grateful to have Chairwoman Charlene here, and this is the last event for our series, and this is a part of Native American Heritage Month. And then just wanted, a few folks asked about contact information. One source, maybe a primary source, is going to the Muwekma Ohlone Tribe's website, muwekma.org. And then lastly, I want to encourage folks, if you aren't already a member, to join the Alameda Museum. So you can go to alamedamuseum.org for different updates on information, as well as joining as well.
That sounds great. Thank you. I want to thank you all for having me here tonight and share our story and our struggles, and reconnecting in the future to see how we can partner, right, and create something beautiful together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be in conversation with you. And thank you all for joining us and watching the video. You all have a blessed night.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you very